Bachman's Basement is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show.
Welcome back to Bachman's Basement. I'm your host, Chris Clawson, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, Chris Patton. This week, we find ourselves in the morgue. Imagine for a moment if you wake up in a sterile environment of an autopsy room. You're lying on a cold steel table, perfectly aware of your surroundings, with one small caveat. You're completely paralyzed, unable to speak. Even your eyelids won't obey your frantic commands. This is precisely the situation our protagonist, Harold Cottrell, finds himself in. But before we get to the horror, how's your week been, Chris? What you been up to?
It's been good. I got no complaints, man. It's things have calmed down a bit at work, and that's allowed me to do more fun things. So yeah, it's been busy, but good, steady. How about you, brother? How's your week been?
It's been actually pretty good. Just kind of, work and hanging out. I've been playing more of that Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora game, making some good progress in that game. It's getting more and more fun as you get more progressed in there. So that's been a blast.
So I just saw that that's on Game Pass, so I might grab that and give it a go based off your recommendation.
It's fun. I mean, I'm nowhere near the end of it yet, but the more I play it, the more I enjoy it. So
yeah, I've been playing all sorts of stuff. I finished The Warriors, which was a game that I played for the Patton Report. That's an old school Rockstar game. I think we talked about that last week. It's still a lot of fun. Game's awesome. And I played some games with some friends I hadn't played games with in a while. Daisy, which I guess is a zombie survival game in the same way as like 7 Days to Die, or Vane, I think is a newer one. It's interesting.
I've seen gameplay for it, but I've never played it. But it looks cool.
It was pretty much them walking me around, and me not having any idea what the hell I was doing. But it was pretty funny.
It's kind of open world, right? And like you group up with people and survive.
Very much open world server based game. The servers I think hold up to 60 players. So at one point there was like 20 players in that room, but they were kind of just all doing their own thing because it's a lot about base building and you got to worry about your base being raided. And for the most part, it was them driving me around and trying to find me some gear. So this is the first time I'd ever played. So doing raids on like individual houses and locations and getting your gear together. Very much survival game. You have to worry about food, water, not getting infected, all that jazz. But it was fun because I was playing with friends, so that it was a lot of me like, why do I have to press 2 buttons to get out of the car? Because you know how I hate shit like that.
Yeah.
So like you have to like hit F to open the car door and then hit F again to get out of the car. And I'm like, does this really need to be 2 clicks? That would be like my one complaint about the game. The inventory system is also like click and drag to different locations, and probably fine if you play a lot of PC games. I just now started playing PC games again. So there was a little bit of a learning curve, but it just led to like really funny circumstances. They're like, can you hurry up? There's like clearly zombies coming, and I'm like, I'm trying. I'm clicking and dragging as hard as I can click and drag. So stuff like that. And then they released that trading card game simulator in demo mode on Xbox Game Pass. So I played a little bit of that before we jumped on here today. It's pretty cool. Right. That's more of like just a straight sim game. You run a card store, you expand the store out as you grow. You get to open packs, which is fun.
That's
and
cool.
collect in game, and then you can sell those and get them graded and sell them. And it's more of like a laid back thing. I think that's a multiplayer game as well. That might be something we tackle on a day where we just want to talk.
Yeah.
Do
That sounds, I
something
mean,
like
there's a
that.
simulator for everything now, simulator game, sort of like for every sort of like, car wash simulator or, you know, uh, that one we played it together where you like clean the houses up, house
Mhm.
flipper or whatever. That one was pretty good. But yeah,
House flipper in Power Wash Simulator,
yeah.
which I got like a bunch of people into on accident. I think Cassie was playing it too. You guys were both like, it's a good, it's a good
Relax.
veg out game.
Exactly.
Uh, this is in the
Oh,
same vein, but you're running a card store.
gotcha. I was gonna mention it just because it's the news of the week in gaming. Philly Spence retired, so Xbox does not have its figurehead anymore. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, no, I sent as soon as I saw it, I sent it in the chat and I was like, oh man, Philly Spence. It's a weird time for Xbox. I think it's the first like they have a female lead now, which
Right.
is interesting. That's kind of
Vodka
cool.
Sharma, I think is her name. And I know I've been watching a bunch of stuff on it, and like she's comes from the AI side of things, and she was also like a CEO of like DoorDash or something prior to that. So she doesn't come from the gaming space, but hopefully Matt Booty, who's been a long time Xbox in the sort of in the weeds, so to speak, with the gaming, so he kind of knows his stuff and that way. So hopefully the two of them together can kind of complement each other. I know there's quite a bit of uncertainty out there, and a lot of people think that this is like the beginning of the end for Xbox. So we'll see.
I mean, it's the beginning of the end for gaming in a different way, right? So I talked about that on the Patton Report, and guys, go check out the last episode of the Patton Report. With hardware prices, right? With AI eating up all of the hardware resources for RAM and for physical hard drives, you
Yeah,
run into this situation where with Microsoft, it's not like maybe as in the theory of just Xbox and physical consoles that may go by the wayside, but they're also so heavily invested in the AI space with Azure and hosting these servers that it's not going to go away. It's just the way that we approach games and playing games will be more than likely streaming based, which is
exactly.
already incorporated into what they do anyway. So her coming from the AI side of things is not completely surprising. Um, Philly Spence's legacy with Xbox, I think, is going to get its own section on the next episode of the Patton Report. So I didn't have anything super prepared for
Yeah,
the
and I
day.
don't want to turn this into another episode of the Patent Report, but I did want to mention it just because it's something I feel like we're both gamers, we're both Xbox, longtime Xbox patrons, so it was kind of big news, and at least wanted to throw it out there.
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy. I didn't ever think Philly Spence would. Felt like he would be forcefully removed and not retire. So
Yeah, I know that he had mentioned it like a year ago that he was, kind of thinking about his exit strategy, but that it may still be a couple years, and I know that the word on the street was that he was going to see it through until the next hardware came. But apparently he decided to dip out early.
yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of hardware on the books of what is potentially going to be the next Xbox thing. That Rogue, the Asus Rogue thing that they released has already
ROG.
got some problems.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see where gaming goes in general. We're just going to have to, hang
Wait and
on
see.
to our butts, as they said
Right?
in Jurassic Park.
Yeah, exactly. Sam Jackson classic.
Speaking of which, did you watch anything cool?
Uh, I'm trying to think. Like, I didn't go to the movie theater this week. Obviously, looking forward to Scream 7. That'll be. I think we're gonna go see that. My wife, that being that she works at the movie theater, gets to watch movies early, gets to preview them, make sure that the copy works and everything. So she's lucky. She's gonna get to watch the Scream 7 early. But I think we're gonna go see it with some friends and family on Friday night when I get off work. So Otherwise, yeah, this week I really can't say that I've watched anything of note. A lot of YouTube, since I subscribe to YouTube Premium now, just got signed up for that. So I've been enamored with the zero ads.
Yeah, I watched Train Dreams on Netflix, which was really good. Interesting. Just more of a beautifully shot film, but it just follows the 80 years of life of the main character of the film, who works for the Great Northern Railway, kind of Spokane International Railway. And he's a logger. So it's a lot about him being away from home and having this family. And then they, well, I don't want to of the story of his entire life and how he's, the best things of it, the worst things of it, what he saw in the 80 years of him being a logger and then no longer being a logger, kind of being like a hermit, so to speak. Yeah, it's interesting. It's not normally what I would watch. My wife was already super into it. I know that it's got nominations coming up at the Academy Awards for Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay. So
nice. Well, yeah. I mean, it doesn't sound like something necessarily that I would latch onto myself, but I might, some night if it's on streaming, I might give it a spin.
Yeah, it's one of those Netflix. It's definitely on Netflix, so it's out there for anyone that sounds interesting. It's shot beautifully. It looks great. So if you just want to, watch something that looks really, really nice, that's for sure out there. The acting is good in it as well. It's just there's not, like I said, it's more following the life of someone. So it's not there's not a huge plot points or anything. So if you're looking for that kind of thing, it's not really.
It's more just the story of a life.
Yes, for sure. And then we watched RoboCop 3 on Sunday, which is coming out today, or actually, well, by the time you listen to this, it will already be out for the 6M. We did a watch along of RoboCop 3, which completes the trilogy of RoboCop.
Nice.
Much better than 2. We were not looking forward to it at all. It was a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. So it's a really, really fun episode. Hopefully everyone will check that out when it comes out. But yeah, if you haven't seen RoboCop 3 in a while, Chris, it might be worth a watch. It has very much the 80s B Orion Cannon film charm to it.
I always enjoyed RoboCop, and I know you played that the RoboCop game that came out a while ago, a few years back. And I've been meaning to play that game as well. But I like RoboCop. It's a little campy and certainly of its time, but I enjoy it for sure.
Rogue City's great. It's kind of in a weird spot where I think it takes place between 2 and 3. But the writer of Rogue City, the game, is the director and co-writer of RoboCop 3.
Oh.
Wow. So it kind of falls into that plot. And yeah, Frank Miller heavily was involved with RoboCop 3. So the overall story of it is more about the people of Delta City, which is Detroit, essentially rising up against the OCP and the government. So you have this whole RoboCop's actually not in the movie as you would think for as in the movie as much as you would think for a RoboCop film. It is very much like, here's this giant subplot of these people rising up as a rebel force against the OCP and the Detroit government, and then also RoboCop. So it's very interesting. I think I think it might be the most comic book of any of the RoboCop films as far as like those kind of plots go.
Nice. Well, what do you say we get into what we're here for?
All right. Let's do it. Let's get spooked out.
All right. So this week, if I don't think I mentioned the title, but this is a short story by the title of Autopsy Room 4, which was first published in 1997 in a limited print collection called 6 Stories. And then later was included in short story collection Everything's Eventual in 2002. It's also had a few adaptations to television and short film, which I personally haven't seen. But according to the internet, there's a major motion picture currently in development for this story. I haven't obviously haven't seen any of this, but I'm keeping my eyes open for the movie. Hopefully, it's going to make it to the theaters and doesn't just languish in development hell. But rereading, or in this case, I listened to it on Audible. It made me think about the first time I read this versus this time, and I realized that I definitely remembered the story, but I couldn't recall how the story ended, which made this reading of the story or listening as effective as the first time. So if you haven't read this story and you don't want us to ruin this one for you, this is your spoiler warning. Go give it a read. It's short, it's sweet, and then come back. Either way, you've been warned. So the setup for this story is told a bit out of order as we're stuck inside the mind of the protagonist. But just to give you guys an idea of what leads our protagonist, Harold Cottrell, to his unfortunate circumstances. Harold is a successful stockbroker who lives in Derry, Maine, of It fame, and is out playing around a golf when his poor golf shot leaves his ball in a bush, and he goes to find it and is bitten by a rare snake. And it's explained how the snake got to where it was, and it's not native to the US. Explains that towards the end of the story. But yeah, so he's completely paralyzed, and his pulse and respiration pattern is almost non-existent, so leading the medical team to mistakenly think that he's dead of a heart attack. He's transported to the morgue for an autopsy, and this is where the story picks up. So like I said, we're in his head, and the story picks up disorienting, really, because he's inside of a body bag, but then he sort of comes to, and that's sort of like we're inside the mind of this character. He's wheeled into the room on a cart, and the opening of the story is in complete darkness, so there's no description of what's going on. It's just what he's thinking about. And then it's just this whole thing is told through his perspective, which really gives us, the reader, a front seat roller coaster ride to the suspense that really does become almost unbearable as it reaches its conclusion. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it was interesting. I don't know that I'd ever checked this one out, or if I had, it's been so long ago that I remembered nothing about it. But it's very much, it's definitely playing on your inability to get your thoughts out, right? So similar to like Johnny's Got His Gun, for instance, where you're in this kind of state of paralysis with full consciousness, but this inability to explain what is going on. So it's told from that kind of narrative. And just playing off the fear of being buried alive, right? Like that goes back to Edgar Allan Poe and the premature burial,
Sure.
the diving bell, etc. If you're trying to relate it back to older fiction, as we sometimes do here, it's interesting. The character is very unlikable, which kind of plays into a lot of this dark humor. It had me laughing at times throughout the story, and I'm sure you're going to get more into that. But yeah, it's pretty funny, like especially his like internal monologue where he's mocking the staff and the different people who are trying to perform this autopsy as he gets wheeled off to the morgue here.
Right. Yeah. So my thoughts, like, the feelings of claustrophobia and helplessness are just expertly unfolded and, written by King in this instance. While we live with the protagonist trapped in his mind as he desperately tries to find a way to alert the medical examiner and her protege before they begin, cutting him open. So besides Harold, there's only 3 other characters in this story. We have Dr. Katie Arlen, who's the primary pathologist, Dr. Peter Jennings, who's the pathologist in training, who is going to be performing his first autopsy, and then Rusty, the medical assistant, who is dismissed early in the story. He's just kind of immature, but he does make a return toward the end of the story. I felt like part of what makes the horror so visceral is the fact that Harold can't move any part of his body. His eyes are open, And so like when he's placed on the table, the description of the overhead fluorescent lights just piercing through to his brain, because he not only can he not blink, but his pupils aren't dilating either. It's just descriptions like that. It's like you can just kind of imagine that, how painful that would be. Yeah, so I just felt like, and it's all building to, to them about to, cut him open. The description of the various tools as they're brought over and paraded to and fro, in and out of his line of sight because he can't move his eyes, but they kind of are bringing him over and setting them near his body. That's just really effective at building suspense. So, and like you were saying too, the dark humor just interlaced throughout the storytelling, especially since most of this is his internal monologue. It does help to sort of let some of the pressure off, since it is sort of just a pressure cooker of suspense. You're like, is this guy going to make it, or is he about to be cut open while still being alive? So
yeah, it's very much making you confront like what death might feel like, and the idea of consciousness being trapped inside your body, stillness, not being able to do anything.
Yes.
And to some extent, that existential horror is more effective than gore for sure. It's interesting that the pacing of this is very much feels like real time, in the way it's written. So it's I enjoyed that specifically. Like the entire thing feels like it. I mean, I think it is perfect for a film, honestly, because like in 2 hours this could all happen, right? So it's kind of interesting in the way it's written, and it's completely different than the adaptation of it from the TNT miniseries with that, which is the Nightmares and Dreamscapes miniseries, which we talked about previously. I'm trying to remember the episode in which we discussed it. I think it wasn't Dolan's Cadillac. It was the other one. Crap, and I'm blanking on it. The one with the portrait. I'm blanking on the name.
Oh, the Road Virus Heads North.
Right. The Road Virus is also part of that adaptation that was on TNT. And this one is very weird because Richard Thomas plays it, who is from the Waltons. Plays Cottrell's character, which is kind of crazy because Richard Thomas always played these very wholesome characters. And in this situation, I mean, that's the one thing about this is like for Thomas, you don't feel bad. It's like the guy from Thinner as well. Like as a character, he's like just a complete rich douchebag.
Yeah.
Like just all can, like his pride is so centralized. And that's why it makes it so funny with some of his commentary throughout this, and at least his inner monologue.
Exactly. I guess it, to a degree, it's sort of like, I think we talked about it, but that movie Send Help, where it's like the boss in that movie who ends up stuck on the island. He's just a real douchebag that, you just hate him. But, you sort of like at some point, due to the series of events, you sort of start to understand his humanity. And you're like, oh man, that's not fair though. You're like, start to feel bad for him. So that's kind of how I felt about this character, where I'm like, he's not a good guy. I don't like him as a character, but also at the same time, like, well, he is a person. Nobody deserves that. But yeah, it's equal parts like humor and horror. And I think if it's done right as a movie, kind of like an Oz Perkins film, like The Monkey, if they make something in that vein where there's dark humor and suspense, it could be effective.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. I wonder what direction they will take with it, though, hearing that there's a script, because there's also just the straight horror. Like I said, if you go more of like Johnny's got his gun, right? Do you take away some of that humor? Because I think without the humor, it's not as effective, at least for me. That's part of the thing that I like the most about this short story.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like it's going to be a tightrope sort of act to make an effective thriller, but to use just small elements of dark humor to, like I was saying before, sort of let some pressure off of this pressure cooker of a story. Just little teases here and there, just to kind of help the audience relax for a moment before it starts again. But
and hopefully they don't do too much like pre-story, right? Should
right,
really just be like a brief description of what the character is. He's playing golf, boom, and then we're right in. That's what I would
exactly.
want out of the film, because like I said, you don't want to lose
You could
the
literally have the opening of the movie just be him playing golf with the credits and everything, and then like, you see, he walks into a bush and you see he gets bit, and then the credits are over and then the movie begins. That could
yeah.
literally be how it goes. But obviously Harold, as the story goes along, realizes that he just gets a sense that eventually he's going to be able to move again if he can manage to survive this encounter, as he focuses really hard and is able to make the smallest sort of humming sound. But unfortunately, the doctors aren't hearing it, as they decide to put on some music, sort of to liven the mood as they're about to begin this autopsy. So, there's so many moments in the story that make you think, well, this is it. And then something will happen that delays the start of the cutting. The best way I can describe the way this story made me feel is kind of the same way that you feel when you stand close to the edge of a cliff and everything's fine. You're not going to fall, but one wrong move and it's game over. And that's sort of like the feeling this whole story has, where it's like you're standing, you're right on the edge and you're looking over and you're like, oh, it's just like that feeling in the pit of your stomach. So, that was my assessment of the way that the story makes you feel, which is very effective, I thought. It's just sort of that foreboding, that feeling that this is just not going to turn out good for this guy. But
Yeah, it's very effective in I would say, standing at the edge of a cliff is a good, maybe like a car teetering, right?
yeah,
Where
exactly.
you're
Where
trying
you're
to
like,
shift your weight one way and back the other way,
yeah,
kind of thing. It definitely has that vibe to it. But it also plays into the humor the entire time, right? Like them throwing on the Rolling Stones or whatever they were playing,
yeah.
to break up this body trying to talk to them, or at least get their attention that, like, hey, this person's not dead,
It's like,
clearly.
just like at some point he says, just put a mirror under my nose. You could at least do that, you know? And I mean, there's even points in the story where the doctors are talking to each other, and the protege is like, man, this guy he could be alive, his body temperature. And and she's like, just think about where he was picked up. I mean, it's 100 degrees outside, right
Yeah,
now.
the incompetence of this medical staff does not make you feel great about having to go
No.
to the hospital anytime soon either, to be fair.
Yeah,
Um,
it makes you hope that this is just for the sake of storytelling, that the people that do this for a career are much more thorough. But
one
yeah,
one one would hope so, right?
yeah. And then on top of all of that, talking about not being a professional, there's this chemistry kind of happening between the two doctors that is very apparent, where she's kind of flirting with him and coaxing him and so on and so forth. So that kind of leads to some more dark humor moments in the last sort of act of the story. And in the final act, Harold is stripped down naked, and the doctors are reporting their initial findings, kind of just looking over his body and making the assessments and writing things down. Standard procedure. Uh, Dr. Jennings has a tool in her or in hand and is placed to Harold's stomach when he's interrupted from starting the internal investigation. Dr. Arlen stops him, like it's like just about to happen, like he's got it, like the cutting, it's like set right, and he's just about to do it, and then she stops him as she notices this scar on Harold's thigh, which is something that Harold's thinking has been thinking about. he's like, "You're bound to notice my scar." And it's sort of like a little sort of side note in the story about the fact that Harold was in Vietnam and uh, was in an accident, shrapnel, and he nearly was castrated as a result of this accident. So this scar runs up along his thigh and into his groin. Uh, the ironic thing is that this accident that happened in war, this thing that happened to him that almost killed him 10 years prior, is now the thing that ends up buying him more time. So that, as Dr. Arlen, the female doctor, is examining the scar and where it ends, which, is obviously early explained from the shrapnel. She's pulling his genitals to the side to inspect the end point of the scar, which is right up in his groin. And that character, Rusty, comes barreling back in, yelling, "Don't cut him open!" And, the kind of the big reveal, because, this guy's just laying there paralyzed. Dr. Katie has, her latex gloves on, and she's just sort of pulling his penis to the side, but she has her hand on it. And as she's surprised by Rusty, she's like horrified to realize that he has an erection. So she, it's like the news and then the reality of it just kind of comes in sort of a funny way. She realizes immediately that he's alive. So obviously he ends up surviving. Final part of the story, he's sort of just recounting his recovery over the following year and his 15 minutes of fame with national news. What was it that the news report said, like, man scared stiff or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely something. It's definitely to that
Autopsy room. Yeah. So I found the ending to be hilarious and sad at the same time, as Harold explains that he's unable to stay aroused unless his wife is wearing a latex glove during sex. So it's weird, dark humor, but it was funny, but also kind of sad. So the story being told from the first person and that person being unable to act in the world made this sort of a chilling edge of your seat story. Thankfully, it didn't end on too dark of a note. Do you have any more thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's it's a pretty straightforward story, like you said. It does play off a lot of just other stories, right?
Sure.
These horrific stories throughout the history of time, like going back to people tying a bell string as they bury people so that they can ring a bell in case they were buried alive. And then you get into kind of what defines death, like the absence of a heartbeat, brain activity, the ability to communicate. And that's kind of like, if you've ever read Johnny's Got His Gun or Johnny Got His Gun, it plays into those similar fears. And there's a lot of these kind of stories. That I think the thing that kind of sets this apart from those is the humor. And
Yeah.
without the humor, I don't know that the story really does much for me, but it is really, really funny. And
It's
funny in
I
a way
feel
you
like
don't get a lot of with Stephen King.
yeah, it's equal parts humor and horror because you are feeling it from his perspective. You're like the way it's described, you're like seeing, right, like you're in his mind and seeing, everything that's happening is described from his perspective. So uh, I think it made it pretty unsettling. But I, my Bachman score for this, it's a short story. I thought it was very entertaining and equal parts funny and scary. I feel like I could read it again in 10 years and probably forget, how it went and maybe enjoy it again the same way I did this time. So I think my Bachman score is actually going to be 7 out of 10 on this one.
I'm right there with you. I think a 7 out of 10 is very fair for what the story is. And I did enjoy it, and I would recommend other people to go read it, but it's not top tier or anything for sure.
It's
It is
fun
funny.
and short.
It might be one of the funniest short stories. but I don't know
Yeah.
how to grade that on the scale.
Right.
I'm not really into the Bachman's basement scale's not normally centered around how funny it is.
Right. So that's where, yeah, I mean, I'd say that it's not, it's scary because, you know, you're putting yourself in this situation and going, I would not like this at all. This would be the worst thing to ever happen.
Yeah. And if this is the kind of horror that like really bothers you and you love being scared, I mean, I would check out about like Coma by Robin Cook. That's another, The Pit and the Pendulum, obviously by Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah.
Diving Bell, like I said earlier, and The Butterfly. Those are all stories dealing with a similar theme, but take away the humor and just make it a straight horrific experience.
Yeah.
Those would be more gripping tales. But if you're here to have Stephen King talk about penises and be funny, this might be a 10 on your scale. I don't know.
It's entertaining nonetheless, so it's worth it, simply for the fact that it's just about an hour. Sit down, you could read the thing in an hour. It's about an hour to listen to it. You can get it on Audible there. It's part of, like I said, part of Everything's Eventual. So if you buy that book on Audible, you'll be able to find it in there. Yeah, I guess kind of wrapping things up. If you're looking to find me online, you can find me on Facebook, Christopher Clawson, and my Instagram is Chris_Clawson 1982. Go ahead and let them know where they can find you, Chris.
It's Christopher.R.Patton on both Facebook and Instagram. And as always, you can find us at boinkstudios.com, where all of the latest content from all the creators of Boink Studios can be found. Whether you're listening on Spotify or watching on YouTube, there will be links to everything. Whether you like comic reviews and movie reviews and music reviews, you got the 6M. If you like wrestling, Tom Clark's Main Event. If you want to hear some sports talk, you got Ray's Sports and Slams. Want to hear some video game talk, you got the Patton Report itself, hosted by yours truly. And also there's a Bear Mode podcast and Ted Lasso podcast, which go over the Bear and Ted Lasso respectively and go through all the episodes of those shows. So those are out there as well. And tons of other stuff dating back, gosh, I want to say it's 10 plus years. So there's a huge backlog of things to go listen to if you enjoy the content.
All right. Well, again, thank you to Boink Studios for having us as part of the selection. And I guess as we leave the cold tiles of Autopsy Room 4, remember the greatest terror isn't what's waiting in the dark. It's the realization that you're trapped inside the one thing you can't escape, yourself. Next time you feel a phantom itch, count your lucky stars. You can still reach out and scratch it. Thanks again for descending in the basement with us. And until next time, stay in touch with your senses and make sure that they can hear you.